All right, here we go. Good morning.
As I love to say, here's our office.
Ready, set, go. Coming to you live, it's the AutoHub show with Ian and Jeff. Here we go.
Who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Hi, I'm Gail Rubenstein, the founder and CEO of a company called Retail Resilient, social selling for the car industry. And we help auto dealers, auto agencies, and vendors in the auto industry sell more cars, service more cars, and make more money using our social selling strategy. That includes TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and anything else you can think of. So if you're looking to invest thousands and make millions, we're definitely the social selling company for you. Like I said, who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks?
I was at Larry Coleman's seminar. So happy I came, having such a good time. Thank you so much, Larry.
One of the best trainers in this area for sure. I don't know about anywhere else, but as far as I know, he's the best. So, told you, just take advantage. Thank you for having me.
I'm at Larry Feldman's seminar, and what I've found is that what he's really good at doing with his knowledge and with his training, he's not filling a bucket, he's lighting a fire.
Always to improve. Every month we want to improve better on what we did the month before, maybe the year before. It's about how fast we can get the cars done with quality work to get it to the front line, because that's where we make our money. And the bottom line is, the longer it takes, the more money we spend. We want to get it down as low as possible. Right now, like I said, we're in a great stage. We're at 4.5 days. In recon, we want to know how quickly we can get the cars out of the recon process and to the front line. The average days in recon, and then the time to the line are the most important thing to do. I'm Mike Burrell, I'm Service Director at JM Lexus.
All right, good morning and welcome. Sorry about the audio. Sometimes there's a difference between the audio in the on the Zoom and on the live feed. I'm not sure what that is, but it's technical. But audio comes out great live and recorded. Anyway, a couple books. If you
been around for like 8-9 years, I haven't perfected it
yet. Yeah, exactly. So if you didn't watch the video, definitely check it out. It's been banned in a lot of places, but it was a fight in a Sherm. It was kind of interesting. Got banned on YouTube immediately, but if you're curious, it's out there. The other one was an interview with an Indian guru talking about how he had to go to the U.S. to experience stress and stress management. He didn't know that even existed before he went to the U.S. So it's kind of interesting. And then, of course, from a point of view of books, I picked a few, and those books are about resilience, people, and do hard things. If you haven't read the book Surrounded by Idiots, it'll help you in your life. It'll help you in your relationship, and it'll help you with dealing with people, because it's about people's personality types. But more importantly, it gives you examples. If you read the book, you'll learn a lot about other personality types. Everybody has a personality type that they don't get along with, but it'll help you there. I highly recommend it. The gentleman who wrote it, his dad created the DISC personality profile system, if you're not familiar. Resilient. Good book on that. And then Do Hard Things, because I believe dealing with stress is really about resilience and how to survive no matter what happens. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, this is one of the favorite parts of the show for me. And by the way, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, Brandon, as I said in the mention, because you're like, just there where you're actually closer to Europe than you are to Vancouver. So, but anyway, this is my favorite part of the show, where I blame everybody else for everything controversial, especially Larry Feldman. And so the views and opinions shared on the show here today are those of our guests, not necessarily that of me and Nethercutter, Jeff Polo, or the AutoHub show. Ian.
Yeah, so I do polls all the time. So I did one after the show last week, and it was about frustration in the automotive industry in 2023. And I got quite a few votes on it. So what's the biggest frustration? It was no vision, software technology, people support, and customer experience. No vision or lack of planning was the #1 thing that people voted on. And I'm doing one right now on lease end because I had a customer of mine who's been a little frustrated about her lease end charges. So I've got a pull up going on right now to what people's experience was with the brand and the dealer at the end of a lease in terms of fees and other. So we're talking today about the Frontline show. How can you handle it, or can you handle it? So let's get into it, Jeff.
Oh, definitely. This could be really good. And I mean, the front lines are what it's all about, right? It always has been. And, you know, I always used to train my salespeople, and I'd tell them, I'd say, you know, a customer makes their decision on how they're going to get treated in the service department of a dealership within 1 minute of meeting a salesperson. And frankly, it's very true. And dealers tend to put everything they have on somebody that's got about 6 minutes experience. And it reminds me, actually, before I mention the question, years ago in Canada here, there's a very large TV network that has a program called W5. And this program every year does a show called Secrets of the Car Salesman. And they send out somebody from their wacky company called Automotive Protection Agency, which basically is just some people, you know, they just want to get money. And they go across the country, and they walk into dealerships, and they videotape them with pinhole cameras and purses and stuff like that. And then they put it on TV. And they get all the blithering idiots, because let's not kid each other. The really, really good shysters in our business, they're smoother than butter on a frying pan. And people don't know they get screwed until they leave with their 2-wheel drive manual transmission regular cab truck being told that if you wash it, it'll turn into a crew cab. And so this one year, a long time ago, they had a salesman, an Asian salesman, new to this particular dealership. And they said, we're going to show you what kind of rip-offs they do. So he's doing a lease, he's sitting down, and then he says to them, they said, well, what's this fee? And the salesman said, oh, that's a reputation fee. A reputation fee? Yeah, because we got a good reputation. And it was a dock fee. And he didn't know. I bet you he'd been on the floor a day. English was not his first language or very good at it. And they went on and on and on. The guy was just a blithering idiot. He didn't know anything. So that's frankly how they do the frontline people. Nevertheless, enough for me, because it's more important our guests here. And I'm going to introduce our guests. And I want to tell you, I'm very excited to have this gentleman on. I've known for a long time. First time on the show. And local fella here, it's Rahim Jamal. Now, I'm not really sure what your official title is, but please introduce yourself to the AutoHub show audience, and answer this first question once you're finished introducing yourself, which is, in your opinion, what's the #1 issue affecting frontline staff today? Rahim.
Hey, so nice to be on the show, Jeff. Yes, as you said, we've known each other for quite a while, and it's been an interesting few years for sure in the automotive business. I've transitioned from managing a day-to-day operation with the Dilawri Group. I moved over to Go Auto as one of their acquisition managers, as it's been harder to find cars, and I just decided that that's something I want to take on more of. So I'm just basically, I've been buying cars. That's what I do for a living. So it's a fun, kind of remove myself from retail, which I did for 20 years, and I'm doing this now. But yeah, so to answer the question, I think, times have changed definitely quite a bit. And so, as far as what's happening on the front lines, I think, obviously the last 2 years have changed the way the interaction with the customer is. We've gone away from day-to-day training, morning meetings, and all those kind of stuff. So just basically, I think if you put an iPad sometimes at a store, it might do a better job than having some of the sales guys that we have in the store. But it's the lack of our training. So I'm sure you guys see it a lot more in the dealership level, where it's, you're almost like, it's just like what Ian said with that book. It's, you got to read a book on personalities to know who's going to look after your client best, right? And where's that guy best suited? He might be the guy that should be in the service department in the back, but he's in the front right now saying hello to the guy walking through the door, who's obviously more educated than anybody else that's walked through the door. They've done all their homework. They're coming in with their armor, and so that's my opinion on that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us. When you mentioned an iPad, it reminds me of Big Bang Theory, where Sheldon was his virtual self. They had a screen on a little robot. You know what? we saw at NADA, somebody actually has a robot running around. And you actually, in this thing rolls up and goes, hello, I am your virtual assistant. X, Y, Z. Next doing us is, hasn't been on in a while, but from Steele Chevrolet in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. For those of you who don't know where it is, it's way east, further east than anywhere else than anybody's been on the show, is Brandon Smith. Brandon, thanks for joining us again. We really appreciate you taking the time. Please introduce yourself and then answer the question about the number one issue today.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. It's good to be back on the show. It's been a little bit. So my name is Brandon Smith. I am the new car sales manager and director of finance for Steele Chevrolet, which is the flagship store of the Steele Auto Group. We're primarily on the east coast of Canada, but we also have stores in Texas as well. We're expanding stateside now. So Steele Auto Group is about 60. I think it's about 65 dealerships or so now. So it's definitely one of the bigger groups in Canada. I think probably second biggest right now, possibly. Quickly expanding in the States, expanding in Canada as well. So very much good spot to be. We're the flagship store, so we're the biggest store here. We have a massive location in Dartmouth. In terms of the biggest issue facing dealerships today, I mean, there's a number of ways you can look at it. I would echo the training issue as one. It's definitely an inconsistent thing across the industry. Not only from frequency but also quality. But another issue right now is just there's still inventory issues that are plaguing the dealers. There's still used car rates are kind of changing daily. I've never seen such volatility in the used car market like we have these last little while. We went from a spot where we couldn't get enough trucks and couldn't sell trucks fast enough or quick enough for as much money, and now I have trucks that are aging on the lot that's changing. You can't kind of give them away anymore. So things change quickly, and it's important to stay informed and connected. But I think another big issue is just the competitiveness that sometimes people will resort to shadier tactics to get a deal than just trying to be transparent and deliver good quality customer service. Sometimes that issue still. Often, but it is nice to see that some of those dealers are getting forced out of the industry now, which is kind of elevating the quality of our industry, which I think is a good thing as well. So kind of a double-edged sword there, a good and a bad.
Terrific. Well, thanks. That's a great viewpoint. Again, we appreciate you being here. And last but way not least of our official guest here is a rock star of the car industry, because I told you that earlier today. Joining us from the greater Phoenix area from the Horne Auto Group, which I think surrounds Phoenix, so they can attack at any time. Is April, please say hi, introduce yourself, although you're far from a stranger, and tell us your opinion of the number one issue affecting the frontline staff today.
Well, good morning, everyone. Glad to be here on a bright and cheerful Monday morning. I think the biggest issue is actually mindset. We have a lot of staff who have never had to quickly pivot. So those of us that have been doing this for a long time, we've had enough history to understand when things adjust, we adjust, and we adjust quickly. And those that adjust quickly will overcome very, fast, and we're ready to rock and roll. So as things are starting to adjust right now, as Brandon mentioned, interest rates are going up, training, we have a massive issue with that. But the biggest issue is actually getting the front lines, the sales staff are going out, changing their mind to understand that the salesmanship now has to be the most important thing. We can no longer say, I have the one car, take it or leave it, have a nice day. That kind of attitude that has been going on for the last couple of years, and quite frankly, didn't matter. It didn't matter. So you couldn't force them, you couldn't have accountability because none of that mattered. And now it does. One of the senior sales staff that we have that's one of our top salespeople has been year after year. She made a comment to me last week. She said, man, I got to go back to selling. I was at 100% closing ratio, and now, I talked to 7 customers and only sold 3. So the mentality, people are starting to shop, we're starting to go back to the customers have a little more control. And I think that we have to change the mentality so that we don't lose a lot of our staff. We saw this in 2008. I think we had a mass exodus of talent that left the car business because they were used to being able to easily sell cars and make money. And now we're gonna have that same kind of adjustment if we don't quickly wrap our arms around people and change their mind about the business as a whole.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Reminds me when I took over a Toyota store and a salesperson comes in, I go out and I see him letting somebody just walk out the door. And I said, hey, why didn't you just touch base? Well, what was the point? He wanted to negotiate. I told him we don't negotiate. And I was like, excuse me? And how much do you want to negotiate? We wanted $300 off. And I literally ran out and got the customer and pulled them back in and that's happening because people are saying, you know, they're pissed off because they're now at MSRP. They're not starting at $3,000 over. And they don't understand. So, and somebody who doesn't know what they're doing isn't making $150,000 a year. I just wanted to acknowledge too, Peter, Joe, and Larry. Thanks for being here every week. Larry, thanks for standing behind us like you wouldn't believe. And Peter and I have been going back and forth in chats and stuff about this topic for weeks and weeks on end. So it's a great thing. Ian, next question, please.
Yeah, and a special thanks also to Jim, who logged on there for a bit from Rapid Recon, one of our sponsors. Really appreciate it. And in addition, one of the other sponsors of the show I want to mention is VidCalls. If you want to get a 30-day free trial, reach out to me. Happy to help. Anyway, yeah, thanks everybody. And if you aren't familiar with Otter.ai, definitely check it out. It allows you to have a virtual assistant in a meeting. It's pretty cool. Not that I get money from it, but it's pretty cool. Yeah, Otter.ai. It's not perfect, of course. So video's been virally spreading of a sales manager in GSM on a physical fight in a Toyota store in California. In your opinion, is this just an abnormality or is it an indication of how the frustrations of the last 2 years have taken their toll on dealership staff? And if you haven't seen it, it's kind of like a hockey fight, but in the middle of the showroom. Multiple customers videotaped it. It went viral and it's been blocked on most social media networks because it's saying it's inappropriate because it's violent or something. So people shared it with me, but I had trouble finding it because it was blocked everywhere.
I'll pop in on that for a sec. I have to tell you, what disturbs me more than anything else is the fact that rather than get in there and do something about this, save the dealership, save the look of the dealership, save the reputation, maybe save somebody from getting injured, they're pulling out their phones because I want to be an influencer. Sorry.
So let's talk about April about this. I mean, I know this never happens at the Horne Auto Group, but I was just curious as to what your opinion is of it.
You know, I kind of chuckled when I saw it, and I know that's probably the bad, not the good response, but 20 years ago, that happened daily. Like, that was a daily occurrence in the showroom, like every single day. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I had a GSM pick up one of the sales guys, slam him down, bust all his butt. I mean, I could do a whole show on exactly all of these things. The difference is to, what you were just saying, we didn't have these guys, right? So that was the difference. Back then, we weren't videotaping these occurrences and putting it out there. And as more and more people are videotaping things, I think us as humans have been a little more careful about, what we do or don't do in the public areas. So, but that used to happen daily, like every single day there was some sort of fight in the showroom. Most of the time you got them to at least take it out back, but that happened all the time. I'm happy to say over the last 20 years, we have gotten away from that. People have gotten better and more control. I'd like to think it was just a one-off situation where something happened that just put people over the edge. I don't think it's indicative of where things are at or where they're going. I think it just was a situation where two people got really mad and couldn't control themselves.
Interesting.
Hey, April, it's Larry Feldman. How are you?
How are you today?
Good to see you. I'm going to take slight issue with you, and everything you say I take as gospel. I actually think this is a net effect of not of people being more careful, but being more prone to be jackasses. When you think of how much bad behavior is celebrated and magnified by these stupid little devices, it's now okay to be, and this is a technical car term, Rahim, it's now okay to be a stone asshole. Because when I was a kid, we were embarrassed if we acted like jerks. Today, being a jerk is like great. The stupider you are, the more you misbehave. So this is just an outline of people having no impulse control. it's the same characters over and over behaving stupidly. April, I'd love to tell you I watch sports as much as I did when I was a kid, when I was a fanatic. I don't. I'm an old grumpy white guy. It started with the kneeling for the national anthem and the dancing around. But what I don't understand is all these guys are paid more than we're paid. And some people in this program are paid very well. All Ian gives me is a stipend. It's paid really well. How do guys that are paid well, and I'm saying guys because as you know, April, men are a lot stupider than women. It's just a biological fact. How do you keep seeing flags and penalties in the NFL for celebrating when every once in a while it costs somebody a game? It's because our impulse control has been destroyed. Maybe 25 years ago, two guys got into a fight because they were trying to support their family, and there's nothing worse than financial pressure. That breaks up more marriages than sex or politics or anything. But today it's okay to be an idiot. You know, look how many views I got. Yeah, but you're acting stupid. Yeah, look how many views I got. So it might also be an offshoot that, like everybody's commented, you see somebody getting shot or stabbed, you don't jump in to help them. Hey, look at this. Isn't this interesting? Somebody's getting shot or stabbed. So it may be the boomerang of everybody being a jerk. You'll have, I know this is going to sound insane, you'll have guys emulate that.
Oh, you will. Now it'll become a thing. Unfortunately, with it going viral, somebody else is going to want to be viral. So you have the copycats, right, that are almost staged that you'll start to see coming out because of this. So
by the way, April, I shouldn't have said anything about the stipend. Apparently, Jeff just stopped payment on my check. For my bologna sandwich this week. It's very sad existence.
That's okay. He was just giving it to me, Larry. He said, hey, you know what, I was stopping it to Larry so that we can get April a stipend.
Well
For the Venmo now.
Well deserved. Anybody that hangs out with Kaylee and Wendy is okay in my book.
Thanks, Matt, Larry.
We definitely had a good time. Stress management.
The reason why it happens is we condone it. We allow it to happen. It should not happen. Examples should be made immediately. Now, we all know that there's a huge trader out there with a colorful past, and we allow him to come into the dealerships. Because why? Because he's going to bring money to the dealerships. We accept bad behavior because it's acceptable because we're going to profit off of it, and it's wrong. It's like, why would you have Jordan Ormond come in and run your financial institution? But we have someone in dealerships now that is doing that, and it's wrong.
Yeah, it's like all the stuff going on with banking where they said, oh, you know, this banking has failed. Well, they don't know how to run a bank. Maybe you should get someone in charge who knows how to run it. Maybe that's an idea.
It goes past that. It goes past rewarding bad behavior.
Yeah.
We are just like we're rewarding bad behavior by liking it, sharing it, and quite frankly, as you've been talking about it, is kind of rewarding that bad behavior. But the bank's going down is because we reward the bad behavior. We bail them out. We say it's okay, little Mr. Bank, that you're too stupid to run the bank, so we'll bail you out. We're doing the same thing in society across the board. We have become a society of rewarding bad behavior. You know, rather than celebrating the things that people are out there doing good, we definitely reward bad behavior.
Yeah.
And the lack of accountability.
Yeah.
One of the reasons that in college, my short stint, I remember thinking, gosh, it's so interesting, not that people break the law, but that more people don't break the law because there's certain societal restraints where not everybody runs out and breaks into stores and robs and rapes and does all kinds of crazy things. Everybody on this panel is smart. It's a smart panel. So everybody has occasionally bit their lip or done something they didn't want to do because they didn't want to lose their job. Mm-hmm. But when there's no sense of permanence or loyalty, hey, I got fired. April, I'm older than you. And I can remember I built my career on special finance, and I was always arguing on behalf of somebody nice. And I would always say the same thing. Yeah, he didn't pay anybody. He's been on the job 9 years. Let me see the app again. Today that would never fly because these guys have 9 jobs in 1 year.
Yeah.
So if you really don't care about what you look like socially, whether you keep your job or not, it's a little hard. You know, it's hard to fight a kamikaze bomber because they're willing to die and you're just trying to get home to eat lunch.
Brandon, what's your thought?
Very well said. Very well said.
Brandon, what's your thought? This never happens in the Maritimes, right? Never?
Actually, I was gonna say I've had a similar situation almost happen to myself.
Really?
Um,
Okay.
Yeah, no, we had just a passionate disagreement that between two employees once upon a time. This is back before the pandemic and everything, but I think sometimes people just get be stubborn and they passionately believe one thing or one way, or someone thinks that someone's trying to take advantage of someone else and they get defensive. There can be a lot of reasons. Unfortunately, I haven't seen the video. I don't know the backstory. I don't know the situation.
I'll send it to you.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's obviously there's no reason for it. There's a million other ways to settle a disagreement or your differences. Yeah, Canadians can get pretty passionate about hockey as well, Joe. That's correct.
Brandon, my wife says fighting is just passion.
It's just passion with injuries.
Yeah, no, I don't think in your professional workplace you need to act professional and be a professional person. So that means you don't go around beating up your coworkers. That's generally viewed as unprofessional where I come from. But I think there can be a lot of different reasons for it. I don't think the pandemic has changed anything. I'm sure an increased stress, which I'm sure can create financial hardships, different things like these that motivate people for different reasons. But whatever the cause was, whatever the disagreement was that created the fight, the fight wasn't the answer. There's other options. There's other ways to get around it. You go take a walk, go to a million other things besides start punching your employee in the middle of a showroom.
Understand.
And that's way too reasonable and thought out of a response. You have no career in politics. You're making way too much sense.
By the way, the cure to a disagreement in a dealership is you go into the back room, you fill up a balloon with helium, take a giant toke of helium, and then argue.
That's a good resolution.
Rahim, what do you think? I know this never happens at big dealer groups.
Oh, I was going to say that I could see Polo going back there at that destination and then back in the day and saying, all right, you know what, let's throw some down. It's kind of like kind of what we talk about now, right? Like back in the day, you take a guy in the back, you have a conversation, and it happens every day, right? Someone stole your up. Like I've unplugged someone's phone before and said, hey, you're taking too many sales calls. And but yeah, it's like society's changed. Everything is recorded and everything is seen, and you are put in a public eye. Like what Ian puts on LinkedIn is seen 4 seconds later, and everybody knows Ian knows what his political outlook of things and how things are. And so I think respect is kind of it's deviated from the daily life of everyone, and we're kind of not. I live downtown Vancouver, and sometimes you walk by someone and you're just scared to look at them the wrong way because of what's happening right now. And it's not just in the dealership, it's not just in the real estate world. It's just part of what's happened. And like April talked on it. So someone pulled out their phone and I watched it. The first 2 times I watched it, I'm like, Dad, how many people are recording this thing? Like who's getting involved to stop it? And I was so pissed off about someone holding their phone. And I was like, this is not, it's not cool. We already have a bad name in being an automotive people, and they're like, oh, here are these guys again going at it. And it's just like, we're not like that. It's just, we're having a decent conversation right now. Right. So, and that's my opinion for sure. Just blown out of whack.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I remember I worked for a deal group years ago, and 2 of the fleet managers got in a fight, and one threw the other one through a glass window, shattered the window. I think it was over a car deal or something crazy, but this was like a big plate glass window. It's like, what are you guys doing? Like, what are you doing?
That's where they named the box king.
Yeah, it's craziness. Craziness. Jeff?
Well, I have to tell you something. The scary part of this video wasn't all that stuff. And yes, I brought up the topic of the video. It was a sales manager and a general sales manager. A Toyota store in California is going to be a store that probably does a minimum of 200 new a month. That's a little store. And 150 used. That's a Toyota store, 100 used. Like, where's the adults in this room here? When I manage teams, and it's like, if Rahim, you said I'd take somebody up back. No, I never got into a fight, but I'm a big guy. I used to walk in and I'd see people do it. I'd literally grab them by the scruff of their neck, throw them apart, and give them, like a mother dog, bark at them a couple of minutes and say, grow up and go away. That's what a manager does not get into a fight. Now, granted, one of them was a big guy, but the other was a little guy. So the little guy probably didn't back down. Just not making, no offense, Larry. But moving right along here.
I happen to know Japanese self-defense. I would have ran his ass over with a Toyota Tundra.
Larry, this would be a good time to tell the story about how you backed off the union guys with your Hello Kitty umbrella.
I'll make this very brief. I owned a dealership. We had a union shop, and they positively were trying to hardball me into putting me and them out of a job. And I knew I had to have the 14 guys give me back 11 days, which they were adamant it's not going to happen. And I was going to meet them, and it was going to be the big standoff. And it was one of these days, April, where it was cold enough to rain, but not cold enough to snow, but it was that close. And my wife said to me, you can't be going out there without a hat or a coat. I happen to be a wimp in the cold weather. So my wife said, take an umbrella. I don't want to damn them. So I take the umbrella, and I'm standing out there telling these guys that, quote, I will burn down this effing building before I let you take us out of business. I'm as tough as you are, but it started to rain, Rahim, and I'm freezing. So I figured my wife's right. I put up the umbrella, and I said, I'm as effing tough as you are. And they started laughing at me. I thought, shit, I thought this was a good tough speech. And I looked at the umbrella and had ears on it.
Hey, that's the way of the week, Larry. That's the showroom fight.
Somebody would have whipped up their phone for that one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, that was your wife setting you up to go against the union. That was your wife. You saw that whole thing.
He's on the UAW payroll.
Brother, you're better off with the union. You ain't negotiating with your wife. You surrender next.
Exactly. So, one of the things we started off early in the show, Ian mentioned his friend that was returning a lease on a vehicle. And the story quickly is this is a big dealership that's very highly rated, but they wanted to charge her for her lease ended inspection. They wanted, of course, they were doing the damage and the tires and the whole shebang. And it brought up something that, customer care. We've gone through 2 years, maybe a little bit more, of people being told, hey, you want to buy? Buy. You don't want to buy? And all of a sudden we're pivoting because everybody's got cars. Yes, the odd dealer does have it. So what is the state of customer care today? The gossip we talk about, Peter and I, of course, we gossip, is that things have progressed terribly, because we have so many staff with very little experience and have never experienced anything but a market where they can go to say somebody, what do you mean you're leaving? I got a car. I mean, you drove the price to retail. And they have little skill. So other than your particular stores, because we know your stores rock, what's your opinion on this? Has customer care dropped? Are we really missing the boat here? And I'll go with Brandon.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for their stores, but my store, we rock. So we have a very veteran sales staff, so they've seen the before and the during and the after of the pandemic. But we also have some new people who are relying on some of the veteran experience to kind of for some frame of reference to adjust how they're seeing things. So we had a couple people who started selling cars in the middle of the pandemic, and this is a whole new world for them. And a couple of them are struggling, a couple of them are asking for more help, and they're learning now as they're growing. This is not stuff that you initially would have figured out your first kind of 3 to 6 months on the job in the normal time. Your first 3 to 6 months on the job during the pandemic was you just making a whole bunch of money because you said, hey, do you want to buy this car? And they said, yeah. But now it's, hey, do you want to buy this car? Well, what can you do for me? And there's a lot of opportunities for more learning, more on the job learning, more I think you got to learn every day and grow every day. But for people who started the pandemic, I think they're going to have a hard time ahead in the next little while. If they can't adjust, they'll probably get frustrated, and they might find themselves trying to change dealerships, thinking that the support's changed or something's changed, and not knowing that it's an industry thing that's changed right now, and that everyone is going to need to adjust, and everyone's going to need to go back to the way things used to be. The customers remember what it was like before the pandemic. They remember what happened during the pandemic, and now they're going to try and get a bigger, better deal than they had in the last little while. And there's a lot of dealers out there that are already starting the race to the bottom. But if you get back to a point where you can build value in your dealership, build value in your product, and build value in yourself as a salesperson, you'll be very, very successful.
Yeah, well, that's a very good point. I love the positive viewpoint. It's very easy for us to get negative in this business. And that positive viewpoint is very good. But you're also lucky because you got some veterans who know what's going on. There's a lot of dealerships that lost, unfortunately, decisions were made during the pandemic. Oh, good, I can get rid of these expensive people that I got to pay them on their new veterans pay plan. And I got to hire some new guys who needs them because we're going to be in this forever. So, April, you have the experience of getting the feedback from multiple stores. And what's your viewpoint seeing this plus your connection with other stores, other brands, other dealers?
I think one of the hardest things, and I relate this to being a parent of little kids, you have to give your children a bedtime, right? And they may whine and cry and kick, but it's for their best good. What we lost over the last couple of years that I think is going to be the most impactful is actually accountability. And we haven't held anyone accountable. We haven't held our salespeople accountable. We haven't held our management accountable. We haven't held our service advisors accountable because it didn't matter. And if you tried to hold them accountable, they were like, fine, I'll go next door. And there was just this fear. Fear is what kept us from holding people accountable. It's not that we didn't want to hold people accountable. I think we just had this fear, so we were kind of like, it didn't matter. We'll just keep pushing forward. Well, now in order for us to get back to business and selling cars, it's going to take accountability. That's the number one thing. We have to make sure that we're holding people accountable to take care of the customer, to follow up with the customer, to do all the right things, to make sure our managers are doing 2-minute manager turns, like all the stuff that we know is super important to help us sell cars and make money is going to be at the core. Accountability is going to be one of the hardest things. In my opinion, as we transition, because people are going to buck. And
that's going to start with management, not with sales.
Yeah.
Listen, I absolutely love all the negativity in the car business because all it's going to do is make me richer and richer. Because I already deal with you through Robert. You service techs, and I train all over the country. This is just a fact of managers thinking it's autopilot.
Yeah.
Ian, your guy with the disposition fee or the reputation fee. Would it take much for a manager to sit down and say, listen, it's give and take and it's a with them? How about if you said to the guy, I've got great news for you. Usually we charge $400. You've been so dynamite, I got him down to $200. Now the guy walks away and thinks he got a bargain. It's just how you phrase these things. I always say if you have a dog and you point, your dog never looks in the direction you're pointing, he looks at your finger. We need to get salespeople to understand, right? The Stephen Covey thing, start with the end in mind and work on the role playing, the personality, the energy, because without that, you're dead. I don't care how good of a TO guy you are. If the salesman's toasted to people, but it's not the salesperson's fault. The hell do they know? We're hiring them. We're responsible for them.
Exactly.
Larry, just quickly here. We operate this business on a 30-day term. We only look at 30 days. We don't look long-term, and that is which allows us to be reactionary. We're not looking at long-term. When I got in this business a long time ago, this was the very first book I got, Customers for Life. I got that in the 90s, back when Greg Cardone was pre his drug-fueled lifestyle and his abstaining.
Wait a minute. You already picked on Andy Elliott. You can only abuse one trainer each show.
Well, actually, Greg Cardone had black hair and giant shoulder pads.
Yeah. So that, yes, I remember that in the Miami Vice suits. As I was going through that, when I went to NADA, the very first place I went was Sewell Cadillac. I wanted to see where this all came from. I've never had an experience in a car dealership in my entire life like I did at that dealership. It was absolutely incredible, to the point where I thought I was getting kicked out of the dealership by the sales manager, and he brought me into his office and said, I have 45 minutes for you. I'll answer every single question that you have with regards to our dealership. You want to know profitability? I'll tell you. You want to know our scheduling? I'll tell you. You want to know anything you want? I will tell you about it, just to make our business better. And I walked away from that dealer. Just before I walked away, he says, do you still have your book? And I said, no, I paid it forward. I gave it to one of my managers. And he goes, and opens up his drawer, pulls out his book, and he goes, I've had this book for 17 years. It's got dog ears, highlighting, ink all over it, but I'd like you to have it. His own personal copy, and he gave it to me. I walked away. I went to the NADA because it started the next day. I probably told that story 30 times at the event. That is what it's all about. We have to go and we have to look at long-term customer value, not the short-term gains. We'll have to go through the short-term pains to get the long-term gains. And if we start developing our people to understand that they're in a business that is a true business, not the car lot, it's the car business, and we move forward with the car business, we will get them to understand that their revenue generation is that equivalent of a QSR restaurant per year. Like, they're making as much money for the dealership as a Starbucks does. That's their responsibility. And I guarantee a Starbucks restaurant, the franchisee has a business plan. Why are we not putting that forth in our people today? And that's what we have to, it's accountability, like everyone has said. We have to get off this reactionary plane. We have to plan properly and devise a focus and a strategic, tactical business plan moving forward for success. It's changing. Everyone can agree it's changing, and we got to get to that point.
And Peter, how about if we do this? How about if we remember this simple fact that we're human beings and we're dealing with human beings? I've built, Ian, Jeff, everybody knows me, always kids me that I always answer my phone. If you see me step away from here, it's because I'm taking calls as we're doing it. Today, if we can just convince people to understand how important human contact is in a world that's starved for it, and to smile at people and to talk to them. We've all seen the tragic lessons of closing schools or putting masks on people so kids can't learn to read or to speak or to communicate. I hear bullshit everywhere I go on training. How about teaching people to smile? Not to walk up to people and go, can I help you? Not really. Is there anybody here not having a bad day? So if we just emphasize the humanity of it, and let me say this to you, Brandon, you're 100% right. Some of these guys showed up, man, I'm making $1 zillion. But I know people who get into the car business since the time of Henry Ford because the money was better than what you could make doing other things. There's guys, car salespeople, making more than lawyers. Okay? So all we have to do is make them understand it may not be as dramatic as what you saw last month, but in terms of a long-term plan, you get to eventually create your own schedule once you build a following. You get to control your income. How many jobs can you control your income? Where the smarter you work and the harder you work, the more you make. So I think this is a race not to the electronic stuff, okay? I'm with Elon Musk. We got to be a little careful of the AI. As a matter of fact, April, that was him on the phone. He just got off. He complimented everybody. He apparently he did the research. That was not two guys fighting on that tape. It was a guy that wouldn't take the warning. So I guess that justifies it.
Okay, but I do want to talk about one thing when we talk about it putting humans back into it. We also need to realize that a lot of our meet and greets are happening on our website. And I've been really passionate about people need to understand how we as humans are communicating in that way, whether it's here, everyone wants to know what my secret sauce is when I first went into internet after, being a desk manager and after being in the box and all of those years, I said, well, I just applied all the same concepts. I just did it here, right?
Yep.
So whether it be via email, via text, via phone call, all those same things need to happen. I don't talk on the phone sitting down. I never have, even with the old school phone that has a thing. Like you would see me tangled up because I'm walking as I'm talking. That's because I feel it's important to have the smile, the energy, all those things need to happen and happen the same way. And I think we missed that spot in both sales and service. Still to this day, even after a pandemic and shutdown and Zoom things and all this stuff, we're still really missing that. I tell the service departments, I say, hey, we finally are just now getting GMs to admit that this is a digital showroom, but it's also a digital service lane.
Yep.
And how many of you have gone on and tried to set a service appointment? Is it even possible? I had my service director at one of my Ford stores get excited last week because he said, April, we were the only ones that didn't look like idiots in this big Ford meeting because that's exactly what they did. I said, now you understand why I'm so passionate about be a customer. Do the things that your customers are trying to do, and that's how you can find your biggest problems. Yet we still don't do some of those very basic things to help that long-term, stuff that Peter's talking about, right? How do we stop having these issues and stuffing all this stuff on your website? And yeah, some of it we have to do because the OEMs force us. it is what it is. But how can you make sure that your customers can navigate the stuff? Is to be them. Be a customer.
100%. I mean,
we forget about empathy. We forget to understand that our customers want to be treated like we do. I was just at a dealership, I won't say the name, and I got a lot of people. It was a great session. The guy said, Feldman, do me a favor, help my service department. Yeah. I went back, I said, watch this, want to see some magic? I guess he was waiting for me to pull out, how I'm determining the hours and I said, no, let me talk to your receptionist. And she was like you, April, and I mean this is the nicest compliment. You could hear her smile over the phone. But she was doing something that all receptionists do, which drives me berserk. You would call to talk to somebody, and they would immediately send you to their voicemail. I said, how much easier would it be for you to say, let me check to see if Peter's available. 1 second. Okay, he's ready for your call. Hey, he's not available. Would you prefer voicemail or can I take a message? You would tell me one tech, one nerd that likes going through 10 phone prompts and then getting hung up on.
We have no voicemail, Larry. To this day, as I'm sitting here and it is 2023, Horne Group does not have voicemail.
Did you tangle yourself up in the phone cord? That was an amazing image. That's in constant motion. I love that.
And if you talk to...
I'm wondering where she got the phone. I've never seen one of those things before.
It's all
You're from Canada. There's a lot of stuff you haven't seen.
It's literally my bat phone. The only thing it's actually used for now, because this is one thing I've always done to kind of Larry's point. I get people like, how do you get your steps in? I'm like, I don't use the phone. If I need to talk to somebody, I physically walk to their office. I am so impatient that if you're not I'm going to talk to you, you're not just going to look at the call ID and go, yeah, I'm busy doing other stuff. I'm going to be in your face. So I'll literally just walk to people's office. So the only time it rings is if somebody is calling me from the front to be like, hey, somebody's here to see you. Are they legit or not? Do we let them upstairs or not? So that's the only thing that phone gets used for.
Did you guys hear that? She just revealed one of the secrets to her success. She's obviously bright and positive. She's impatient. How about if we brought a sense of urgency back to our business? Mm-hmm. How many times have you wanted to strangle a guy? I know you're anti-violence, but when you say, did you call your guy? Oh, I will, boss. Yeah, right after he buys from somebody else. If there's not a sense of immediacy and then it's pleasant, you're dead.
And Jeff, we haven't heard from
the chance to create urgency.
Jeff,
guys, if we tell them to make 10 calls over 3 days of showroom follow-up, we haven't given them things to say. How do they create that urgency? And that is super duper key that we need to be the ones, I call it, the talking points, right? Give your guys things to talk about when they're following up. Otherwise, sometimes they don't call because they just don't know what to say. And the idea of this, just get them in. I swear that is you want to talk about, I want to do physical violence? Say that in front of me. Just get them in. Really, really, how? What's the strategy?
It's magic.
Load the lips on the phone like you would, they're going into the showroom.
There's your headline, Brandon in Phoenix next week. Salesman beaten to death by stationary phone.
Or joke. So, my poor Rahim is sitting there. His first experience here is watching the crazy show here. So, Rahim, I'm going to ask you, because you used to be a manager, and that transition where you can actually look at this from a different level. And so, what do you think's happening? I mean, you're probably not in the stores as often, obviously, as you used to be. But what do you think's happening with customer care? Because it's very funny, this Ian story with a BMW dealer.
Yeah.
The old BMW, it was like, hello, it's for cappuccino, and that changed. So what do you think with customer care?
You guys hit every point, right? One of them was talking points, calling people back, so, do what you say you're going to do, right? We make a promise to someone, we're going to call them in 45 minutes and no one phones them back. And the guy's calling us, I got to drop off the service loaner. I'm going to be charged for it again tomorrow if I don't pick my car up. Am I going to be charged for it if I don't pick up my car? Like, no one's calling back. Is my car ready to be picked up? Car is sitting out back. It's not clean. Like, I experienced that myself. Like, not being in a store 5 days a week, I'm there 4 days a week or whatever it is. And if my car is not clean, like, as a manager, you get your car, it's all clean up. Now I ask one of the guys, hey, can you take my car out? Just get the oil change or whatever. And it's like 3-4 days, and you're like, who am I talking to? Where is everybody? Like, what's going on right now? And it's, I watch a transition from someone taking the salesperson into the finance department. Now they're sitting in the lounge and they waited there for 25 minutes wondering who's going to come get them. And where is this next guy coming from? Like, who might be? There's a fear, and that fear escalates as they wait in the showroom with the unknown. So I think it's, telling people what they're going to get from the beginning, right? You're going to come in, you're going to meet me, A, B, C, D is going to happen, and we're going to get you in and out within a certain time frame. Time management, respecting time. People don't, they don't want to sit in a dealership for 4 hours, and that's why they go online and they try to preliminarily do all these things before they get there. And if you're not ready for them, they're having a bad experience. So, it's that old school saying, right? Preparation meets opportunity makes a sale, right? And if you're not prepared and you're all over the place, it's why you guys send out a call flow, because we could just chatter all day if there was no agenda, right? So I think that's missing, and if that comes back, and it's going to take a while, and you're going to have people that you got to rewind these guys. We're car guys, right? We always need to be reset. It's reset the mindset every day and get out there with a fresh mindset, and it'll all transition the right way.
And sometimes it's just about.
There's a saying that the best laid plans of mice and men who seem to go awry. And Rahim, you're part of a group that the corporate vision is take care of the customers, do it right. We know about Go Auto is a big group, and they're growing like a weed. They're almost as big as actually bigger than Steele. Sorry, Brandon. And but even they got caught up because the people up in the corporate offices in Edmonton, that's sort of like Phoenix with winter. They have a vision and they take care of customers. But one of your stores, one of the group, got on national news about how they screwed two customers around. And if you think about it, the vision has to come down to everybody. And Peter and I, again, keep talking about the crap starts at the top. And in this particular case, for what I understand, that the top was very good. They're very clear in their vision, but it stopped at whoever is making the decision at the store, because this particular instance I'm talking about is people, one person had a Mustang Mach-E on order, somebody else had an E-Transit on order, and Ford, with their great new digital system, let them track their order. Great news, your car is on its way. It's at the dealership today. And they called them up, it's not here, it's not good yet. And on national news, a VP of whatever it's called got raked over the coals by one of these great people. And he just said, hey, they screwed up.
Yep.
And no choice but to throw them under there. But one customer couldn't get an E-Transit. No such thing. Stop building the darn thing. So they're screwed.
Yeah, and
nevertheless, Ian.
Yeah, and it's funny. I got a call from a salesman, he's a vendor, wants to be on the show. We get these often. And he was apologizing for being persistent and apologizing for over communicating, apologizing for a bunch of things. I said, number one, who told you that? And number two, you have to have something to say. You can't just communicate at scale. You've actually got to have a reason. But more importantly, you have to have a process. And I think a lot of it is that they don't know what to do, so they don't do the right things. And that's, to me, is just, someone, be it their sales manager or another salesperson or maybe even clients, say to them, hey, man, like, I'm happy to listen to what you got to say, but you can't just barrage me with stuff and hope that works out. It doesn't work that way. So I think a lot of it is that salesperson who maybe for the last 2 years, it was easy. Now it's becoming difficult. So you have to have a meeting with them and say, listen, like, it's great that you made a lot of money over the last 2 years. We're happy about that. The next 2 years probably going to be different, and probably every year might be different. So let's prepare for that. But more importantly, let me teach you the why. And that was the thing that really struck me when I was talking to this friend of mine about this lease return. It wasn't the fees. It was like, why are there all these fees? What do you want that lease manager to say to the person who suddenly is landed with a bunch of fees that they weren't expecting? And what the thing that was really big for me was that her husband said to me, he said, this happens every single time I lease a vehicle from this dealer. And I said, okay, well then why are you not moving from brand to brand? Like, why? Because to me, it's not just that they're having these fees, it's that they're not listening to that customer who's obviously not happy. They're not asking the question, but more importantly, the brand, in this case, BMW, is not talking to the dealer and saying, hey, like, what are you doing to piss off these customers? Like, it just doesn't make sense.
And they're too busy focusing on selling heated seat subscriptions after the lease.
I guess, but to me, when I look at digital retail, and I, just like April, I manage the internet department. I took the same page from talking to a customer in the showroom, and I used it when I was talking to customers. I had customers in who asked me all kinds of questions because they were different, because they're internet customers. That was back when people were spending 11 to 14 hours online. I think 6 to 8 was the metric. Now it's 14 to 20. If you think that customer isn't more interested in that online experience today than they were 10 years ago, even after the pandemic, you're wrong. But more importantly, what are you doing at your store to create that personal experience for that customer before they come in, and shortening their purchase process? And I know we talk a lot about Carvana, CarMax, Vroom, other companies, and they did some things wrong. Granted, no one's perfect in this world, but they did a lot of things right, which is basically, I want to make it easy for the customer to buy a vehicle, to reduce the time, but more importantly, to help that person. The customer's asking for help. Like, I need a car, help me explain. Not, you need to do this. You need to fit into this box, right?
Just on that note, and you've been talking about polls. I put a poll out there just recently about training in the dealership, where people find that the most training is necessary in the dealership. Mm-hmm. Sales department, BDC, fixed ops, service parts techs,
yep,
management, including stakeholders,
yep,
and ancillary staff for reception and things like that. Obviously, service BDC or service techs parts is going to get the most necessary training, yep, because the application of their jobs.
Yep.
But right behind it was management and stakeholders.
Yep.
And we fail as dealers to recognize that we need training. It's almost, it stops as soon as you get a title. You don't need training anymore, and it's like, oh, great! I made it. I don't have to get up at 7 a.m. to go sit in a classroom to listen to a guy tell me about how he would do it if he was in my shoes. It's wrong, because training today is, and Larry can attest to this, there's training and then there's coaching. And if you constantly train your staff, you will experience a 23% lift. If you add the application of coaching afterwards, it goes to an 88% lift. And people don't realize the importance, and that filters down from the maturity of the dealer owner and stakeholders involved to say, hey, you know what? I have to learn about people skills. I have to learn about this. I have to learn about this. And they're not doing it because their name's on the building.
Yeah, but I think it's easy, Peter, to beat up the dealer, to beat up the brand, to beat up the dealership group. And I'm not saying training isn't valuable. And I've done training at dealers for years myself, so I see the value in it. But I think a lot of it is that you really need to figure out that why for the dealer, but more importantly, that why for the representative or that manager, but more importantly, tailor that to that dealer group. It may not be the same training for dealer group A, B, C, and D. It may be that some people don't need that training or that type of training or even want it. It's about them buying into it, whether it's the dealer or the staff member or whatever.
The issue is what Peter's trying to say, and I'm just gonna interject real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
The biggest issue in the car dealerships as a whole is that we don't develop managers to leaders. And there's a massive difference between being a manager and being a leader.
Yeah.
Okay? A manager says, I used to do ABC, now I just have to make sure that all these people do ABC. That doesn't mean that you're actually good at developing humans. We don't do that in the business, so that is the lack of training that we miss when we're trying to elevate our managers to become people who can actually grow, build. There's people who are builders, there are people who are maintainers, and there are people that are destroyers. Managers are maintainers. People who grow business and develop business, those builders are leaders, and we need to do a better job of making our managers be leaders.
100% agree.
Mic drop there, April. That's a mic drop. And the problem, and most people will concur with this. We look for instant gratification and ROI on our investment, and we want it now rather than long term. We don't see that if we can change the mindset and the attitude of the individual to allow them to grow, that we will take them from a 10-car a month person to a 25-car a month person in 12 months, not next month, but in 12 months. And we have to develop that and show them the pathway. Likewise, with a manager, we have to change them from managing the results to building the people. It's a people, process, tech business.
Yep.
That's what the car business is. People, process, tech. We look at it that way, we will move forward in the right direction.
Thanks for that. Jeff, we're out of time, so we got to get into final thoughts. So go ahead.
Well, folks, thanks very much. This was really lively, Rahim, a great experience. Watching the how things go here, and we share a lot of really good stuff, and together all of us we can make a difference. We can move things forward and create a much better industry, because my opinion is we're sliding down a slippery slope, and we've had such success, and I've never seen it in my whole life where, well, maybe somebody that could sing good, but when you had to do nothing and get rich. And some of these stores, and one of the stores, I won't mention the name, near here, they still don't have cars in their front line. They have tons of vehicles. They got like 80, it's a GM store. They got like 80 white 1-ton trucks lined up on the side, a bunch of EVs that don't have chips sitting in the back. Their front line's still empty, and they don't get it. And we got to work on changing it, because it's been too easy. I do not have any opinions, Peter. This is actually was a message sent to me by Brandon, who says, Jeff, I have this view as being a really nice guy. So Jeff, could you say this? Actually, I can blame everybody else. But nevertheless, thank you. Oh, here's Larry. Thank you all very much, and appreciate you being here, and thank you for sharing that. Ian, I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, I would recommend, if you haven't already picked it up, Angela Duckworth, her book Grit. It's about becoming gritty and identifying gritty people in your staff and developing a growth mindset. She's a researcher who's done a lot of studies here, but more importantly, will help you identify the people that will get it done and how to make your teams more gritty and develop that growth mindset. To me, that's one of the first steps towards leadership, but also it allows you to identify who those people are that will be grittier than others. And grit is a trait that you have that grows over time. But more importantly, if you don't have it, you probably won't get it. So it's a really good book, a lot of study, but also really will help you grow a team. And I don't get any money from this, but I've had a number of videos over the last little bit on extreme ownership, some great tactics from the military that you can apply to your business on, how to make your team actually want to do stuff versus telling them to do stuff and hoping they do it. And there's a bunch of clips out there. Highly recommend it. Include those people in the conversation that work for you. Make sure that they want to do it. And more importantly, they're part of that solution. And surprise, surprise, they'll actually take ownership of it and move the needle forward. If you think you can tell people what to do and they're just going to do it, it's not going to work the way you think. And that's not me saying that, that's him, but I agree with him 100%. There's lots of videos on YouTube for free if you want backup on that. But I believe that if it works for a Navy SEAL commander, it'll work for anyone. But more importantly, people, especially younger people today, and maybe even some older folks, they want to be part of that discussion. They just don't want someone to tell them what to do. If they wanted that, they'd probably still be living with their mom. Not to say that's bad. Anyway, thanks very much. Have yourself a great day. Any final thoughts from anybody else?
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks again, guys.
Yep.
Great interaction.
Great seeing you, April.
Good to see you all. Have a happy week.
You too. Bye for now.
Thanks for joining us. It was a great show, and follow us anywhere you would like on your favorite podcast, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and of course on our YouTube, or subscribe to our own channel.